Amen. At this time, as we have this opportunity, we want you to know, Margaret, that you don't have, a limited time. You feel free to pray, to share the opportunity as the Lord leads you, and you're welcome to come up here now and to be guided. We know that Margaret Meed is with Ethnos, and has come here before. She was teasing me, or I was teasing her maybe, about, she'd come just before I came 2 and a bit years ago. And so I want you to know that it wasn't because of you that I was delayed. But anyway, we're glad that you're here. God bless you, and thank you for the ministry you're doing.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, it's good to be with you this morning and to see you folks again. And yes, to meet your new pastor. Well, yes, a couple years new at this point. That was exciting because last time, you hadn't found a new pastor yet. So very thankful for that, for God's provision for you. So now I've gone on and spent a couple years overseas, and now I just want, looking forward to being back and sharing with you a little bit about what's been happening. But I want to start this morning with a question, and that is, what do you think of when you think of Africa? Maybe you think about the heat and the hot weather. It's not the 34 degrees Celsius that you need to worry about. That's the outside. It's the 29.9 degrees, which is the interior temperature of the house. And it did actually hit 30 or so, and it was that way for about a month. But you'd be surprised how well you can adapt, how well you can handle it when you've got a good fan and good airflow going. So maybe you think about the heat. Maybe you think about the different landscapes. You've got the jungles, the deserts, the savannas of Africa. There's lots of different landscapes that you can get into. Or perhaps you think about the animals. I personally would think about, lions, giraffes, elephants, zebras, like all of your safari type animals. But I had a lot of people tell me that when they think of Africa, they think about snakes. Which was interesting to me because now I was in the city, but I maybe saw one snake outside the zoo in the time that I was there. Now, maybe once I get to a village setting, I will see more snakes, but so far I have not seen very many snakes. So, if you're scared of Africa because of the snakes, it's not necessarily a huge deal. Anyway, now there are quite a number of people who think that Africa is a country, rather than a continent full of many countries that it is. Unfortunately, there are people who believe that in today's world. Or perhaps maybe you grew up with your parents telling you to eat all of your food because there are children starving in Africa. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that there aren't children starving in Africa. Different parts of it, certainly. And depending on their, class or like station, social situation. But the children that I knew while I was there did seem to be at least fairly well fed. So, now this one was interesting. I had one person tell me that when she thinks of Africa, she thinks of vibrancy. And not just vibrancy in the colors, the clothing that they wear. As you can see, they do wear very bright and colorful, vibrant clothing. But she thinks of vibrancy in every sense of the term, of the people, the culture, just everything. And I thought that was just a really cool take on what she thinks of when she thinks of Africa. Or if your church has ever been involved in ministry in Africa, if you have ever taken a short-term trip there or a long-term term, or if you are supporting missionaries and getting information from Africa, then maybe you would think about that specific location and what you saw and experienced or what you've been learning about that part of Africa. And so that's just some things that maybe you folks might think of when you think of Africa. Now I'd like to share with you a little bit about what I think of when I think of Africa. And I would definitely fall into that last category of people in that I think specifically about Senegal, which is the country in West Africa, where I spent the last 2 years. And yes, I spent those last 2 years specifically learning the language and the culture. And in particular, I was learning French as like the most regional language of West Africa. And the general culture of West Africa. And I reached the required level, which would be capable high, back in October. And so it was certainly quite the adventure. So for sure, when I think of Africa, I think about the heat and the dust in the air and the cockroaches and all of those fun little, there were certainly several highs and lows. And I think about all of those things, but I also think about how normal life felt at times and how easy it was to forget that like my life is totally different from everyone else's that I know back home. What do you mean you don't like get leaves from the tree in your yard to make a leaf sauce for lunch? Like that's just normal. That's just life. And I think about people that get just as excited about their own culture as we get about ours. I'm a Carleton County girl. I love to go fiddleheading, and we just finished maple season and go get potatoes in the fall. And it's really something when that song comes on in church in their language, and everyone just has to get up and start dancing and expressing their joy. And I don't know what you folks think about dancing in church, but these people, they don't understand how we can worship God without dancing. And it's just such a cool experience to get to participate in that and to learn to love their culture just as much as they do. And they love to see you participating and being part of that as well. I mentioned all of our Carleton County foods. They've got their favorite foods as well. This was a palm nut sauce. So there was a tree in the churchyard that produced a cluster of palm nuts, and the guys of the church harvested it. And the next week, they told me they spent all night preparing this sauce to share with the folks after church on Sunday afternoon. And it was very good, I must say. Definitely would recommend. Very well spiced and flavorful. And that's one of their very, really, really good. They get very excited about having it and sharing that with others. And so there's that. I think about the people that I got to know and love during my time there. Let me see. People like my language helper. She was my language helper for all but one phase of the program. And we just got to be so close. And we're able to share our struggles and our lives with each other. She was pregnant with twins when I was starting out my program. And so then I got to follow along with the first year and a half of these kids' lives as they grew up and as I was learning language. And one of them's betrayed me because ever since she was just starting to learn how to talk when I left to come home. And now there's another missionary who is now connected with her as her host family. And this little girl, every white lady is Dani and not Margaret. So I feel very betrayed, but I have time to redeem myself. Anyway, she taught me how to make BSAP and yassa. BSAP is a hibiscus juice. It's very good, highly recommended. As well as yassa is an onion sauce, that you have with it's like caramelized onions with chicken or fish or something over rice. And I actually brought that recipe back to share with you folks, so I'll get to that later. But she's the one who taught me how to make that. And then there's my host family. They helped me find my apartment and move into and out of this apartment. And then they never missed an opportunity to get me involved in different church and community events where I could learn culture and participate in these activities. He would walk me home if I was ever at their place after dark to make sure that I got home safely. And she helped me with clothing and how to choose different styles for the dresses that I was having made and what to wear for certain events and things. And then there was my roommate. She was a gal from the church that needed new lodging about the time that I needed a new roommate. And so it worked out for her to move in with me, and her presence allowed me to host many more Senegalese visitors than I ever would have had the privilege of hosting if I'd been living with another missionary or on my own. So I think about these people and the part that they had in my time there, my language and culture learning and experience. And then I think about my next steps and my options moving forward, which honestly are a little bit limited and uncertain at the moment. I basically have two options, and one of them is a village setting, doing translation work, which is what I would like to do, but there's some complications with that setting, and so we're trying to decide if it's a good idea for me to step into that situation right now, or if I should wait for a couple of years and do support work in the city at our headquarters before moving into a village setting and see what comes down the road. So I would definitely appreciate your prayers for that, as I am working together with my mission leadership and my home church elders to just prayerfully seek God's will as to what the next steps of my ministry in West Africa will look like. So, excuse me, sorry. And then finally, I think about you folks and how you have supported and backed me on this adventure. And I want to thank you so much for that. You've prayed for me, you've kept informed through my email updates, and you have supported and backed me financially so that I could focus on my ministry. And I have to say, it has been such a blessing to not have to worry about my finances and even to be able to be generous to others because of your support and your involvement. And so there's a little gift on the back table. I mentioned that yassa recipe. It's on the back of this card. And then you'll notice there's little yellow cubes. They're basically bouillon cubes, but they're used to season just about everything in West Africa. So I brought that. There's also some peanut brittle, if anyone likes peanut brittle, that my roommate had made. It's like homemade, that she sent as a thank you to you folks for your involvement and your support in this ministry. There's also lots of other stuff on that table. If you're not getting my email updates, or if you want to officially join my prayer partners team, or get more updates from Ethnos, then there's this sign-up sheet. And then there's also an updated prayer card. So definitely make sure to grab one of those on your way out. And yeah, just please keep praying for me as I'm, again, seeking God's will for my next steps in ministry, and also as I'm on my home assignment time right now and trying to find this work-rest balance. I'm traveling lots and visiting with folks and with churches, so I definitely appreciate your prayers for all of that. So that's just a few things that maybe you might think of when you think of Africa, and what I think of when I think of Africa. Now I'd like to share with you a little bit about what does God think of when he thinks of Africa. And so I don't know if I know the mind of the Lord 100%, but I think that maybe God might think about things like Matthew 9:36, which say, but when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. According to the Joshua Project, there are nearly 1,000 unreached people groups in all of Africa. And by our own missions count, there's about 200 unreached people groups just in our region of West Africa alone. Which I think that God has much more accurate knowledge than we do about the number of unreached people groups in this area of the world. I think that God thinks of each individual person and their story and their situation and how they've not yet heard his message. And so then maybe God thinks about 2 Corinthians 10, 3-4, and Ephesians 6:12, which say, though we walk in the flesh, we do not wage war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. I have heard I've heard the region of West Africa, or else different villages, different parts of this region, described as 95% the majority religion and 100% animist, which, for those of you who maybe aren't aware, animism is simply the belief in spirits, that there are spirits all around us in the natural world, and that you have to do rituals and follow traditions and wear amulets and charms and things to protect yourself from or otherwise manipulate these spirits for your own success. And so spiritual things, spiritual forces and powers are much more real and present in people's minds over there, even as believers and within the church. And it's something that you might not notice as an outsider, as a Westerner especially, if you're not paying attention and not asking questions. You might just think it's a decoration or the clothing that they're wearing, and you might not realize that actually they're wearing that to protect themselves from any kind of harm that might come to them. And so I think that God sees the power that these majority religions hold over people's hearts and minds. And God sees people trapped in these cycles of fear and shame. And I think that God wants to break down these strongholds and build his church that the gates of hell cannot prevail against. And then, as we're thinking about God building his church in West Africa, I think that God looks on his own people in Africa, and maybe he thinks of Acts 18:24-28, which talks about a certain Jew named Apollos, who's born at Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, who came to Ephesus. And this man was instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in spirit, he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord, but knowing only the baptism of John. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom, when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them, and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly. And when he was disposed to pass into Achaia, the brethren wrote, exhorting the disciples to receive him, who, when he was come, helped them much which had believed through grace. For he mightily convinced the Jews, and that publicly, showing by the scriptures that Christ was Jesus. Excuse me. The church in West Africa is small. Like I said, it's 95% the majority religion, and that 5%, or honestly less, very likely, is split between Catholics and evangelicals and other minority religions. So it is very small, but it is vibrant. And they're very eager to minister and serve and to evangelize their people. But they do need training and equipping in doctrine and methodology. They definitely know some, they are instructed, they have their teachers and elders and pastors, but they still need folks to come alongside them, to disciple and train and encourage them on in honestly what they're already doing and already wanting to do. And so this is actually always Ethnos' goal. As a mission, we always seek to serve alongside the existing church. And something that happened after I got there is that we were able to re-kickstart our national training, our missions training, the training that I took in Durham. We've gotten that started over there to train national believers to, Lord willing, someday become our co-workers in this ministry. So that's something exciting that's been happening. Definitely pray for the team because they are rather overworked. They definitely need more co-workers to help with this training program. But that's something exciting that God is doing in West Africa. So ultimately, I don't know if God thinks of Africa very much differently than he thinks of anywhere else in the world where people are lost and need to know him. But I think I can say that as long as we have been sending missionaries into Africa from the Western world, there very much is still need for more people to go, to break down these strongholds, proclaim the gospel of Christ, raise up disciples, and plant mature New Testament churches. And so, I repeat the question. What do you think of when you think of Africa? Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Really, real blessing for sure. And quite appropriate to give applause. We give applause to the Lord too, don't we? For what he is doing. We give him the glory.